श्रीरूपं साग्रजातः सहगना रघुनाथां तं सजीवं सात्विकं सावधं श्रीमते स्वामी नमस्ते सारस्वते देवी गौरवाणी विशेष नमस्ते कृष्ण कृष्ण चैतन्य हे कृष्ण करुणा नमस्ते प्रथम कृपा सिंधु हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे
Where should I show screen to you? Thank you. Am I audible to you? Hare Krishna devotees, am I audible?
Yes, Prabhupada.
Yes, we are audible.
Okay. Okay. Yesterday we read till this one like 1.1.33. We are continuing from 34. तेन संवृत्त संभारो धर्मपुत्रो युधिष्ठिरा वाजिमेध मेधैस्त्रिभिर्भीतो यज्ञै समयद्धरिन्. By those riches, the king could procure the ingredients for 3 horse sacrifices. Thus, the pious king Yudhishthira, who was very fearful after the battle of Kurukshetra, pleased Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. Maharaj Yudhishthira was the ideal and celebrated pious king of the world, and still he was greatly afraid after the execution of the battle of Kurukshetra because the mass killing in the fight all of which was done only to install him on the throne. He therefore took all the responsibility for sins committed in the warfare, and to get rid of all these sins, he wanted to perform 3 sacrifices in which horses are offered at the altar. Such a sacrifice is very costly. Even Maharaja Yudhishthira had to collect the necessary heaps of gold left by Maharaja Marutha and the Brahmanas who were given gold in charity by King Marutha. The learned Brahmanas could not take away all the loads of gold given by Maharaja Marutha, and therefore they left behind a major portion of the gift. And Maharaj Marutha also did not again collect such heaps of gold given away in charity. Besides that, all the golden plates and utensils which were used in the sacrifice were also thrown in the dustbins, and all such heaps of gold remained unclaimed property for a long time, till Maharaj Yudhishthira collected them for his own purposes. Lord Sri Krishna advised the brothers of Maharaj Yudhishthira to collect the unclaimed property because it belonged to the king. The more astonishing thing is that no subject of the state also collected such unclaimed gold for industrial enterprise or anything like that. This means that the state citizens were completely satisfied with all necessities of life and therefore not inclined to accept unnecessary productive enterprises for sense gratification. Maharaj Yudhishthira also requisitioned the heaps of gold for performing sacrifices and for pleasing the Supreme Hari, the personality of Godhead. Otherwise, he had no desire to collect them for the state treasury. One should take lessons from the acts of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was afraid of sins committed on the battlefield, and therefore he wanted to satisfy the supreme authority. This indicates that unintentional sins are also committed in our daily occupational discharge of duty. And to counteract even such unintentional crimes, one must perform sacrifices as they are recommended in the revealed scriptures. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Yajna tat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. that one must perform sacrifices recommended in the scriptures in order to get rid of commitments of all unauthorized work or even unintentional crimes which we are apt to commit. By doing so, one shall be freed from all kinds of sins. And those who do not do so but work for self interest or sense gratification have to undergo all tribulations ac- accrued from committed sins. Therefore, the main purpose of performing sacrifices is to satisfy the Supreme Personality, Hari. The process of performing sacrifices may be different in terms of different times, places, and persons, but the aim of such sacrifices is one and the same at all times and in all circumstances. That is, satisfaction of the Supreme Lord Hari. That is the way of previous pious life, and that is the way of peace and prosperity in the world at large. Maharaj Yudhishthira did all these as the ideal pious king in the world. If Maharaj Yudhishthira is a sinner in his daily discharge of duties in royal administration of state affairs, wherein killing of a man and animal is a recognized art, then we can just imagine the amount of sins committed consciously or unconsciously by the untrained population of the Kali Yuga, who have no way to perform sacrifice to please the Supreme Lord. The Bhagavatam says, therefore, that the prime duty of the human being is to satisfy the Lord by the performance of one's occupational duty. Bhagavatam 1.3.13. Let any man of any place or community, caste, creed be engaged in any sort of occupational duty. But he must agree to perform sacrifices as it is recommended in the scriptures for the particular place, time, and person. In the Vedic literatures, it is recommended that in Kali Yuga, people engage in glorifying the Lord by chanting the holy name of Krishna. Kirtanat eva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Param Vadet, without offense. By doing so, one can be freed from all sins and thus can attain the highest perfection of life by returning home back to Godhead. We have already discussed this more than once in this great literature in different places, especially in the introductory portion by sketching the life of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And still, we are repeating the same with a view to bring about peace and prosperity in society. The Lord has declared openly in Bhagavad Gita how he becomes pleased with us, and the same process is particularly demonstrated in the life and preaching work of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The perfect process of performing yajnas or sacrifice to please the Supreme Lord Hari, the person of Godhead who gets us free from all miseries of existence, is to follow the ways of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this dark age of quarrel and decision. Maharaj Yudhishthira had to collect heaps of gold to secure the paraphernalia for the horse sacrifice yajnas in days of sufficiency. So we can hardly think of such performance of yajnas in these days of insufficiency and complete scarcity of gold. At the present moment, we have heaps of papers and promises of their being converted into gold by economic development of modern civilization. And still, there is no possibility of spending riches like Maharaj Yudhishthira, either individually or collectively or by state patronization. Just suitable, therefore, for the age is the method recommended by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in terms of in terms of the Shastra. Such a method requires no expenditure at all and yet can award more benefit than other expensive methods of yajna performances. The horse sacrifice yajna or cow sacrifice yajna performed by the Vedic regulations shouldn't be misunderstood as a process of killing animals. On the contrary, animals offered for the yajna were rejuvenated to a new span of life by the transcendental power of chanting the Vedic hymns, which, if properly chanted, are different from what is understood by the common layman. The Veda mantras are all practical, and the proof is rejuvenation of the sacrificed animal. There is no possibility of such methodical chanting of the Vedic hymns by the so-called Brahmanas or priests of the present age. The untrained descendants of the twice-born families are no more like their forefathers, and thus they are counted amongst the Sudras or once-born men. The once-born man is unfit to chant the Vedic hymns, and therefore there is no practical utility of chanting the original hymns. And to save them all, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu propounded the Sankirtana movement or yajna for all practical purposes, and the people of the present age are strongly recommended to follow this sure and recognized path. Anybody would like to read the next sloka? Hare Krishna. Ahuto Bhagavan Ragna Yajayitva Vijay Nripam.
I'll read next sloka, Proj. Upcoming sloka I'll read.
The 36th one, Praveen.
That's you complete this. Next one I'll read.
Oh, okay, Praveen. Ahuto Bhagavan Ragna Yajayitva Vijay Nripam. Uvasa Katichin Mahasan Sukrudam Priya Kamyaya. Translation. Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, being invited to the sacrifices by Maharaj Yudhishthira, saw to it that they were performed by qualified twice brown Brahmanas. After that, for the pleasure of relatives, the Lord remained a few months. Lord, perfect. The Lord Sri Krishna was invited by Maharaj Yudhishthira to look into the supervision of the performances of Yajna, and the Lord, to abide by the orders of his elderly cousin, caused the performance of yajnas by learned twice born Brahmanas. Simply taking birth in the family of a Brahmana does not make one qualified to perform yajnas. One must be twice born by proper training and initiation in the bona fide Acharya. That once born scions of Brahmana families are equal with the once born Shudras, and such Brahma Bandhus are unqualified once born scions must be rejected for any purpose of religious or Vedic function. Lord Sri Krishna was entrusted to look after this arrangement, and perfect as he is, he caused the yajnas to be performed by the bona fide twice born Brahmanas for successful execution. Please, you can read it.
Can I read through?
Yes, please.
ततो screen. ततो राज्ञाभ्यनुज्ञात कृष्णया सह बन्धुभिः ययौ द्वारावतीं ब्रह्मन् सार्जुनो यदुभिर्व्रतः. Oh, Shaunaka, thereafter the Lord, having bade farewell to King Yudhishthira, Draupadi and other relatives started for the city of Dwaraka, accompanied by Arjuna and other members of the Yadu dynasty. Thus, in the Bhakti and the purpose of the first canto, 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Birth of Emperor Parikshit. Sut Uvacha Vidurastirthayatrayaam Maitreyaat Atmanogatim Gnatvagadhastinapuram तयावाप्त विवित्सितः. Sri Sutta Goswami said, while traveling on a pilgrimage, Rashapit's home. Okay. So Sri Sutta Goswami said, while traveling on a pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya and then returned to Hastinapura. He became as well versed in subject as he desired. Vidura, one of prominent figures in the history of Mahabharata. He was conceived by Vyasdev in the womb of the maid servant of Ambika, mother of Maharaj Pandu. He is an incarnation of Yamraj. Being cursed by Manduka Muni, he was to become a Shudra. The story is narrated as follows. Once upon a time, the state police caught some thieves who had concealed themselves in the hermitage of Manduka Muni. The police constables, as usual, arrested all the thieves and Manduka Muni along with them. The magistrate specifically punished the Muni to death by piercing with a lance. When he was just to be pierced, the news reached the king, and he at once stopped the act on consideration of his being a great Muni. The king personally begged the Muni's pardon for the mistake of his men, and the saint at once went to Yamraj, who prescribes the destiny of the living beings. Yamaraj, being questioned by the Muni, replied that the Muni in his childhood pierced an ant with a sharpened straw, and for that reason he was put into difficulty. The Muni thought it unwise on the part of the Yamaraj that he was punished for his childhood innocence, and thus the Muni cursed Yamaraj to become a Shudra, and this Shudra incarnation of Yamaraj was known as Vidura, the, Shu- the Shudra brother of Dhritarashtra and Maharaj Pandu. But this Shudra son of the Kuru dynasty was equally treated by Bhishma Deva along with his other nephews. And in due course, Vidura was married with a girl who was also born in the womb of a Shudrani by a Brahmana. Although Vidura did not inherit the property of his father, the brother of Bhishma Deva, still he was given sufficient state property by Dhritarashtra, the elder brother of Vidura. Vidura was very much attached to his elder brother, and all along he tried to guide him on the right path. During the fratricidal war of Kurukshetra, Vidura repeatedly implored his elder brother to do justice to the sons of Pandu, but Duryodhana did not like such interference by his uncle, and thus he practically insulted Vidura. Thus, this resulted in Vidura's leaving home for pilgrimage and taking instructions from Maitreya. So here we can see how devotees change makes bad to good. He told to get out of palace by Duryodhan. So happily he turned into pilgrimage trip. Hare Krishna.
Um, so, would anyone else like to stay? Hare Krishna. Okay. यावतः कृतवान् प्रश्नान् क्षत्ता कौ कौशारवाग्रता जातैकभक्तिर्गोविन्दे तेभ्यश्चोपरारमः. After asking various questions and becoming established in the transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna, Vidura retired from putting questions to Maitreya Muni. Vidura retired from putting questions before Maitreya Muni when he was convinced by Maitreya Rishi that the summum bonum of life is to be finally situated in the transcendental loving service of Lord Sri Krishna, who is Govinda, or one who satisfies his devotees in all respects. The conditioned soul, the living being in material existence, seeks happiness by employing his senses in the modes of materialism, but that cannot give him satisfaction. He then searches after the supreme truth by the empiric, philosophic, speculative method and intellectual feats. But if he does not find the ultimate goal, he again goes down to material activities and engages himself in various philanthropic and altruistic works, which all fail to give him satisfaction. So neither futile activities nor dry philosophical speculation can give one satisfaction because by nature a living being is the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And all the Vedic literatures give him direction towards that ultimate end. The Bhagavad Gita 15.15 confirms this statement. Like Vidura, an inquisitive, conditioned soul must approach a bona fide spiritual master like Maitreya and by intelligent inquiries must try to know everything about karma, fruity activities, jnana, philosophical research for the supreme truth, and yoga, the linking process of spiritual realization. One who is not seriously inclined to put questions before a spiritual master need not accommodate a show bottle spiritual master, nor should a person who may be a spiritual master for others supposed to be so if he is unable to engage his disciple ultimately in the transcendental loving service of Lord Sri Krishna. Vidya was successful in approaching such a spiritual master like Maitreya, and he got the ultimate goal of life, bhakti, unto Govinda. Thus, there was nothing to be known further about spiritual progress. Yeah. Anyone would like to read this one? Tam bandhum agatam
Sambandham
drishtva.
तं
Yes,
बन्धम् आगतं दृष्ट्वा धर्मपुत्रः सहानुजः धृतराष्ट्रो युजुत्सुश्च सूतः सर्वाद्वतः कृता गान्धारी द्रौपदी ब्रह्मन् सुभद्रा चोत्तरा कृपि अन्यश्च जायम जायम्योः पाण्डोर्ज्ञातयः शशुता स्त्रियः. When they saw Vidura return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaj Yudhishthir, his younger brothers, Dhritarashtra, Satyaki, Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara, Kripi, many other wives of Kauravas, and other ladies with children, all hurried to him with great delight. It so appeared that they have regained their consciousness after a long period. Gandhari, the ideal chaste lady in the history of the world, she was the daughter of Maharaj Subala, the king of Gandhara, now Kandahar in Kabul. In and in her maiden state, she worshipped Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is generally worshipped by Hindu maidens to get a good husband. Gandhari satisfied Lord Shiva by his benediction to obtain 100 sons. She was betrothed to Dhritarashtra, despite his being blind forever. When Gandhari came to know, one second. When Gandhari came to know that her would-be husband was a blind man, to follow her life companion, she decided to become voluntarily blind. So she wrapped up her eyes with many silk linens, and she was married to Dhritarashtra under the guidance of her elder brother Shakuni. She was the most beautiful girl of her time, and she was equally qualified by her womanly qualities, which endeared every member of Kaurava court. But despite all her good qualities, she had the natural frailties of a woman, and she was envious of Kunti when the latter gave birth to male child. Both the queens were pregnant, but Kunti first gave birth to a male child. Thus Gandhari became angry and gave a blow to her own abdomen. As a result, she gave birth to a lump of flesh only. But since she was a devotee of Vyasdev, by the instructions of Vyasadeva, the lump was divided into 100 parts, and each part gradually developed to become a male child. Thus, her ambition to become the mother of 100 sons was fulfilled, and she began to nourish all the children according to her exalted position. When the intrigues of battle of Kurukshetra was going on, she was not in favor of fighting with Pandavas. Rather, she blamed Dhritarashtra, her husband, for such fratricidal war. She desired that the state be divided into two parts for the sons of Pandu and her own. She was very affected when all her sons died in the battle of Kurukshetra, and she wanted to curse Bhimasena and Yudhishthira, but she was checked by Vyasadeva. Her mourning over the death of Duryodhana and Dushasana before Lord Krishna was very pitiful, and Lord Krishna pacified her by transcendental messages. She was equally aggrieved on the death of Karna, and she was described to Lord Krishna the lamentation of Karna's wife. She was pacified by Srila Vyasadeva when he showed her dead sons, then promoted to the heavenly kingdoms. She died along with her husband in the jungles of Himalayas near the mouth of the Ganges. She burned in a forest fire. Maharaj burned in a forest. Maharaj Yudhishthir performed the death ceremony of his uncle and aunts. Pritha, daughter of Maharaj Surasena and sister of Vasudeva, Lord Krishna's father. Later, she was adopted by Maharaj Kuntiboja, and hence she is known as Kunti. She is incarnation of the success potency of the personality of Godhead. The heavenly denizens from the upper planets used to visit the palace of the king Kuntiboja, and Kunti was engaged for their reception. She was also served the great mystic sage Durvasa, and being satisfied by her faithful service, Durvasamuni gave her a mantra by which it was possible for her to call for any demigod she pleased. As a matter of inquisitiveness, she at once called for the sun god who desired to compliment with her, but she declined. But the sun god assured her immunity from virgin adulteration, and so she agreed to his proposal. As a great result of this couplement, she became pregnant, and Karna was born by her. By the grace of the sun, she again turned into a virgin girl, but being afraid of her parents, she quitted the newly born child, Karna. Uh, After that, when she actually selected her own husband, she preferred Pandu to be her husband. Maharaj Pandu later wanted to return from family life and adopt the renounced order of life. Kunti refused to allow her husband to adopt such life, but at last Maharaj Pandu gave her permission to become a mother of sons by calling some other suitable personalities. Kunti did not accept this proposal at first, but when vivid examples were set by Pandu, she agreed. Thus, by dint of the mantra awarded by Durvasa Muni, she called for Dharmaraja, and thus Yudhishthira was born. She called for demigod Vayu, and thus Bhima was born. She called for Indra, the king of heaven, and thus Arjuna was born. The other two sons, namely Nakula and Sahadeva, were begotten by Pandu himself in the womb of Madri. Later on, Maharaj Pandu died at an early age, for which Kunti was so aggrieved that she fainted. Two co-wives, namely Kunti and Madri, decided that Kunti should leave for the maintenance of the five minor children. The Pandavas and the Madri should accept the sati rituals by meeting voluntary death along with her husband. This agreement was endorsed by great sages like Shatashranga and others present on the occasion. Later on, when the Pandavas was banished from the kingdom by the intrigues of Duryodhana, Kunti followed her sons, and she equally faced all sorts of difficulties during those days. During the forest of life, one demon girl, Hirimba, wanted Bhima as her husband. Bhima refused, but when the girl approached Kunti and Yudhishthira, they ordered Bhima to accept. They ordered Bhima to accept her proposal and give her a son. As a result of this combination, Gadotkacha was born, and he fought very valiantly with his father. With his father against the Kauravas. In their forest life, they lived with a Brahmana family that was in trouble because of Bakasura demon. The Kunti ordered Bhima to kill the Bakasura to protect Brahmana family against the troubles created by the demon. She advised Yudhishthira to start for the Panchala Desh. Draupadi was gained in this Panchala Desh by Arjuna, but by order of Kunti, all five of Pandavas' brothers became equally husbands of Panchali or Draupadi. She was married with five Pandavas in the presence of their dead. Kunti Devi never forgot her first child, Karna, and after Karna's death in the Battle of Kurukshetra, she lamented and admitted before her other sons that Karna was her eldest son prior to her marriage with Maharaj Pandu. He prays for the Lord after the Battle of Kurukshetra when Lord Krishna was going back home, are excellently explained. Later, she went to the forest with Gandhari for severe penance. She used to make meals after each 30 days. She finally sat down in profound meditation and later burned to ashes in a forest fire. Now, Prabhuji, can you please read? I'll just be back in 1 minute.
Draupadi, the most chaste daughter of Maharaja Drupada and partly an incarnation of the goddess Sati, the wife of Indra. Maharaja Drupada performed a great sacrifice under the superintendence of the sage Yaja. By his first offering, Drishtadyumna was born, and by the second offering, Draupadi was born. She is the sister. She is therefore the sister of Drishtadyumna, and she is also named Panchali. The five Pandavas married her as a common wife, and each of them begot a son in her. Maharaja Yudhishthira begot a son named Prithvi. Bhimsena begot a son named Sutasoma. Arjuna begot Shrutakirti. Nakula begot Satanika, and Sahadeva begot Srutakarma. She is described as a most beautiful lady, equal to her mother-in-law Kunti. During her birth, there was an error message that she should be called Krishna. The same message also declared that she was born to kill many a Kshatriya. By dint of her blessings from Shankara, she was awarded five husbands, equally qualified. When she preferred to select her own husband, princes and kings were invited from all the countries of the world. She was married with the Pandavas during their exile in the forest. But when they went back home, Maharaja Drupada gave them immense wealth as a dowry. She was well received by all the daughters in law of Dhritarashtra. When she was lost in a gambling game, she was forcibly dragged into the assembly hall, and an attempt was made by Dushasana to see her naked beauty, even though there were elderly persons like Bhima and Drona present. She was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, and by her praying, the Lord himself became an unlimited garment to save her from the insult. A demon of the name Jirasura kidnapped her, but her second husband, Bhimsena, killed the demon and saved her. She saved the Pandavas from the curse of Maharishi Durvasa by the grace of Lord Krishna. When the Pandavas lived incognito in the place of Virata, Kichaka was attracted by her exquisite beauty, and by arrangement with Bhima, the devil was killed and she was saved. She was very much aggrieved when her five sons were killed by Ashwatthama. At the later stage, she accompanied her husband Yudhishthira and others and fell on the way. The cause of her falling was explained by Yudhishthira. But when Yudhishthira entered the heavenly planet, he saw Draupadi gloriously present there as the goddess of fortune in the heavenly planet. Subhadra, daughter of Vasudeva and sister of Lord Sri Krishna. She was not only a very dear daughter of Vasudeva, but also a very dear sister to both Krishna and Baladeva. The, the two brothers and sister are represented in the famous Jagannath temple of Puri. And that temple is still visited by thousands of pilgrims daily. This temple is in remembrance of Lord visit at Kurukshetra during an occasion of solar eclipse and his subsequent meeting with the residents of Vrindavana. The meeting of Radha and Krishna during this occasion is a very pathetic story, and Lord Sri Chaitanya, in the ecstasy of Radharani, always pined for Lord Sri Krishna at Jagannath Puri. While Arjuna was at Dwarka, he wanted to have Subhadra as his queen, and he expressed his desire to Lord Krishna. Sri Krishna knew that his elder brother, Lord Baldeva, was arranging her marriage elsewhere, and since he did not dare to go against the arrangement of Baladeva, he advised Arjuna to kidnap Subhadra. So when all of them were on a pleasure trip on the Raivata hill, Arjuna managed to kidnap Subhadra according to the plan of Sri Krishna. Baladeva was very angry at Arjuna and he wanted to kill him. But Lord Krishna implored his brother to excuse Arjuna. Then Subhadra was duly married with Arjuna and Abhimanyu was born of Subhadra. At the premature death of Abhimanyu, Subhadra was very mortified. But on the birth of Parikshit, she was happy and solaced. Pratyujama Jagama Prahasena Praharasena Prana Tanvat Gatam Abhisangamya Vidivat Pariswangabivadanai. With great delight, they all approached him as if life had returned to their bodies. They exchanged obeisances and welcomed each other with embraces. In the absence of consciousness, the limbs of the body remain inactive. But when consciousness returns, the limbs and senses become active and existence itself becomes grateful. Vidra was so dear to the members of Kaurava family that his long absence from the palace was comparable to inactivity. All of them were feeling acute separation from Vidra, and therefore his return to the palace was joyful for all. Mumuchu prema baspagam bashpaugam viraha kantya katara rajatam arhyam chakre kritasana parigraham. Due to anxieties and long separation, they all cried out of affection. King Yudhishthira then arranged to offer sitting accommodations and a reception. Tam Bhuktavantam Vishrantam Asenam Sitam Asane Kashraya Abnauto Raja Rahadesham Cha Srinvatam. After Vidra ate sumptuously and took sufficient rest, he was comfortably seated. Then the king began to speak to him, and all who were present there listened. King Yudhishthira was expert in deception also. Even in the case of his family members, Vidra was all well received by all the family members by exchange of embraces and obeisances. After that, bathing and arrangements were for a sumptuous dinner were made, and then he was given sufficient rest. After finishing his rest, he was offered a comfortable place to sit, and then the king began to talk about all happenings, both family and others. That is the proper way to receive a beloved friend or even an enemy. According to Indian moral codes, even an enemy received at home should be so well received that he will not feel any fearful situation. An enemy is always afraid of his enemy, but he should not be so when he is received at home by his enemy. This means that a person who when received at home, should be treated as a relative. So, what to speak of a family member like Vidura, who was a well wisher of all the members of the family. Thus, Yudhishthira Maharaja began to speak in the presence of all the other members. Yudhishthira Uvacha,
Apismar
Apismrata
apismarathano yusmat pakshachaya समेधितां विपद्गणाद् विषाज्ञाधिर् मोचिता यत्समाकृताः. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, My uncle, do Maharaj Yudhishthira said, My uncle, do you remember how you always protected us, along with our mother, from all sorts of calamities? You are partially like the wings of a bird, saved us from poisoning and arson. Due to Pandu's death at an early age, his minor children and widow were the object of special care by all the elderly members of the family, especially Bhishma Deva and Mahatma Vidura. Vidura was more or less partial to the Pandavas due to their political position. Although Dhritarashtra was equally careful for the minor children of Maharaj Pandu, he was one of the intriguing parties who wanted to wash away the descendants of Pandus and replace them by raising his own sons to become the rulers of the kingdom. Mahatma Vidura could follow this intrigue of Dhritarashtra and company, and therefore, even though he was a faithful servitor of his eldest brother Dhritarashtra, he did not like this political ambition for the sake of his own sons. He was therefore careful about the protection of the Pandavas and their widow mother. Thus, he was, so to speak, partial to the Pandavas, preferring them to the sons of Dhritarashtra. Although both of them were equally affectionate in his ordinary eyes, he was equally affectionate to both the camps of nephews in the sense that he always chastised Duryodhana for his intriguing policy against his cousins. He always criticized his elder brother for his pol- policy of encouragement to his sons and at the same time he was always alert in giving special protection to the Pandavas. All these different activities of Vidura within the palace politics made him well known as partial to the Pandavas. Maharaj Yudhishthira has referred to the past history of Vidura before his going away from home for a prolonged pilgrimage journey. Maharaj Yudhishthira reminded him that he was equally kind and partial to his grown up nephews, even after the Battle of Kurukshetra, a great family disaster. Before the Battle of Kurukshetra, Dhritarashtra's policy was peaceful annihilation of his peaceful annihilation of his nephews, and therefore he ordered Purochana to build a house of lac at Varnavata. And when the building was finished, Dhritarashtra decided that his brother's family live there for some time. When the Pandavas were going there in the presence of all the members of the royal family, Vidura tactfully gave instruction to the Pandavas about the future plan of Dhritarashtra. This is specifically described in Mahabharata Adi Parva 144. He indirectly hinted even a weapon not made of steel or any other material element can be more than sharp enough to kill an enemy. And he who knows this is never killed. I'll just want to repeat. Even a weapon not made of steel or any other material element can be more than sharp enough to kill an enemy, and he who knows this is never killed. Okay, that is to say, he hinted that the party of the Pandavas was being sent to Varnavata to be killed, and thus he warned Yudhishthir to be very careful in their new residential palace. He also gave indications of fire. He also gave indications of fire and said that fire cannot extinguish the soul, but can annihilate the material body. But one who protects the soul can live. Kunti could not follow such indirect conversation between Maharaj Yudhishthir and Vidura, and thus, when she inquired from her son about the purport of the conversation, Yudhishthir replied that from the talks of Vidura, it was understood that there was a hint of fire in the house where they were proceeding. Later on, Vidura came in disguise to Pandavas and informed them that the housekeeper was going to set fire to the house on the 14th night of waning moon. It was an intrigue of Dhritarashtra that the Pandavas might die all together with their mother, and by his warning, the Pandavas escaped through a tunnel underneath the earth, so that their escape was also unknown to Dhritarashtra. So much so that after setting the fire, the Kauravas were so certain of death of Pandavas that Dhritarashtra performed the last rites of the death with great cheerfulness. And during the mourning period, all the members of the palace became overwhelmed with lamentation. But Vidura did not become so, because of his knowledge that the Pandavas were alive somewhere. There are many such instances of calamities, and in each of them, Vidura gave protection to the Pandavas on one hand, and on other hand, and on other, he tried to restrain his brother Dhritarashtra from such intriguing policies. Therefore, he was always partial to the Pandavas, just as a bird protects its eggs by its wing. So here it was just told that all are happy when they were performing final rituals, that Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana are happy that Pandavas died, and Vidura, Bhishma Deva, they're also happy that they are not died. Yes. Shall I continue or someone else want to?
Maybe you can continue, please.
Okay. Kaya vritya vartitam vas charabdhi kshiti mandalam तीर्थानि क्षेत्र मुख्यानि सेवितानि bhutale. While traveling on the surface of the earth, how did you maintain your livelihood? At which holy places and pilgrimage sites did you render service? Vidura went out from the palace to detach himself from household affairs, especially political intrigues. As referred to herein before, he was practically insulted by Duryodhana's calling him son of a Shudrani, although it was not out of place to talk loosely in the case of one's grandmother. Vidura's mother, although a Shudrani, was the grandmother of Duryodhan, and funny talks are sometimes allowed between grandmother and grandchildren. But because the remark was an actual fact, it was unpalatable talk to Vidura, and it was accepted as a direct insult. He therefore decided to quit his paternal house and prepare for the renounced order of life. This preparatory stage is called Vanaprastha Ashram, or retired life for traveling and visiting the holy places on the surface of the earth. In the holy places of India like Vrindavan, Haridwar, Jagannath Puri, and Prayaga, there are many great devotees, and there are still free kitchen houses for persons who desire to advance spiritually. Maharaj Yudhishthir was inquisitive to learn whether Vidura maintained himself by the mercy of free kitchen houses, chhatras. Very, very important. That's why Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas ashrams are there here. So, because until unless we taste the uh, surrender of the Lord in one ashram, in like wherever ashram, so whichever ashram, in those days, they used to have everyone to be sent to the Brahmachari ashram. How they have to, in that Brahmachari ashram, they have been trained how to depend completely on Lord. So, fearlessly, complete faith. So, that is carried throughout their life when they go to Grihastha ashram, and they went to once the person goes to Vanaprastha ashram, that taste will be, he will be reviving that taste when he was what he was experienced in Brahmachari ashram by completely surrendering on the Lord, surrendering to the Lord. So here that's why Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking how, in which, how did you depend yourself upon? Whom did you depend it?
Can I invite you to this? Eight articles.
Yes, bro. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Then we start with the Jai
Jai.
Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.